So here at Trinity, before we get into the sermon, for those of you that might be guests with us, we have what's called a Worldview segment. And you say, well, what is the Worldview segment and why do you do it? Here's the reasoning behind it. I believe today more than ever, Christians need to be informed about what's happening in our world, the moral, cultural, social, political, economic issues of our day. We need to be informed. Why? So that you can know how to pray and know what to pray for, so that through that prayer, you, as a Christian, salt and light in your generation, can be empowered to act, to do something to make the world a better place. Daniel chapter 12, verse 10 says, many shall be purified, made white and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand. But the wise, that's you and me, prayerfully, the wise shall understand. We will have discernment and insight concerning the times in which we live. I want to talk about more than brick and mortar. I want to talk about the spiritual power of home ownership. You know, when you build a house, you're not just framing walls, you're actually framing the future. So I want to start out by giving a shout out to all of the hardworking men and women in the house building industry. Contractors, developers, designers, framers, finishers, realtors, and even bankers. Each of you, you're not simply driving nails in wood, you're driving our economy. More than that, you're building hope. Home ownership literally is the bedrock of the American dream. It speaks of prosperity, stability, the freedom of owning your own parcel of land. And in our homes, it's where we celebrate our birthdays, it's where we offer up our prayers, it's where we raise our families, and it's where we form legacies for the next generation. And in Jeremiah 29, it's no coincidence, when God sent the children of Israel into exile, he was judging them for their disobedience. He said, you're going to Babylon, a pagan culture. You're going to be there for the next 70 years. But while you're there, I want you to get married. I want you to have children. And he says this through the prophet Jeremiah, I want you to build houses. Not pitch tents, which are temporary, but build a home, settle down, plant gardens, and then eat from the produce. And why is that? Because home ownership is an act of hope, even in hard times. It's believing in God's blessing and provision, and it's investing in the future. Jesus told parables about building homes. He said, when you build a home, don't be foolish, build it on a rock and not on the sand. When he entered the temple one day, he said, this is my Father's house. He called it a house. And then he said, I'm going to prepare a place for you, and in my Father's house in heaven, there are many, many rooms. So owning a home is not just a physical milestone. It carries deep spiritual significance. It's about stewardship. It's about responsibility. It's about legacy. So let's talk numbers just for a moment. The National Association of Home Builders estimates that when you build 100 homes, you create 300 jobs for the next year. So every home that you see being built in Lubbock right now, 3 jobs are added at least for the next year because of that home. That's not just construction, that's contribution. Every foundation poured helps build not just a house, but the economy. And God told his people while they lived in Babylon, they were to work for the peace and prosperity of Babylon. And that's what we are required to do as we're living in our spiritual Babylon. Now, today the average home is for some unaffordable, for the average American. And why? Here are some reasons why. That we can help influence through prayer and through decision making and by the influence that some of you have within our community, state, and nation. Interest rates, they've soared, locking many out of the market. Property taxes, especially here in Texas, are consuming household budgets. Supply constraints, restricting zoning laws in some sectors. They limit new affordable developments. And then many young families, home ownership feels like they're chasing a mirage, like it's beyond your capacity to ever own a home. And I want you to know that if you're a child of God, the favor of God is on your life. He is Jehovah Jireh in your life. He is the Lord, your provider. And if it is your desire to own a home one day, I want you to know, by grace, by faith, by the power and the blessing of God, you could one day own your own home. I believe that. When my wife and I got married, we got married in 1989, and we didn't have children. We waited a few years because we wanted to buy a home. And we were both working, full time, and we had car payments, and kind of like Greg and Nancy's testimony, but we tithed, we honored the Lord. And back then, they didn't have first-time homeowner incentives. Back then, you had to have a down payment. And the down payment was something like $4,000 that we had to scrape and save and set aside while we were still tithing. We didn't go on vacations. And lo and behold, about 3 or 4 years into our marriage, year and a half. Okay, I get these stories wrong. She has a much better memory than me. This same illustration was told 3 different ways in the last 3 services. She came back there while I was getting ready to come out just a moment ago. She goes, "You got this story wrong, Carl." I said, "Okay, all right." So it took us a year and a half to save enough money to buy our first home. We did buy a home. Okay, I got that part right. And get this, $4,000 back in like 92, 93 is equivalent to about $10,000 today. That was it was beyond, it seemed like it was beyond our reach. The point of the story is, it's not. All things are possible to them that believe. So what are some of the things we could do to make it easier? Here's some solutions. We can advocate for lower property taxes and fair appraisal reforms on a local level. We can support first-time buyer programs, faith-based housing initiatives. We can reform some zoning laws to allow more high-density and mixed home housing. And then we can encourage biblical stewardship, saving, budgeting, and preparing on your own, not just to rent, but to own. Now, I know for some, renting makes more sense than owning, and there's grace for that, and there's blessing upon that, okay? But we want to help you. That's why we have Financial Peace University. We want to teach you biblical economics. We want to teach you how to become the master of your money so that money no longer masters you. In the book of Deuteronomy chapter 8, God says this to the Jewish people: "I'll give you power to create wealth." God wants you to develop and cultivate a mindset of being a wealth creator. And there's a way and there is a path for you. So when a home is built, you're not just building a structure, you're building a generational story.